Remember a couple of months ago when Diamond and Silk accused Facebook of censoring their conservative voices?
Yeah, I remember that. Well, it turns out they're not alone. You got a new Pew poll that says that roughly 72% of Americans believe social media platforms actively censor political views that those companies object to. So how can you filter your social media to unfilter the censorship?
Here to weigh in is Kurt, the cyber guy, Kurt Knutson. Hey, Kurt.
Hey, good morning, guys. This is one of those things that just hits my hot button because I know from just working here, there are times where my own Facebook feed just falls off the planet.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, yesterday it might be that I post something and say 3,000, 4,000 people immediately engage it in the first hour.
Okay.
But if I post something else now, I might get 13 people in the first hour or 14 people.
So what's happening?
Right? What is happening?
They're throttling you.
We may be. So are they? Or did something change in their proprietary algorithm that we're all a slave to that decides what we see, when we see it, and they're the wizard behind turning the knobs on everything that's presented to us, whether it's on Google, but mostly on Facebook. So at this point, this Pew Research study is screaming out loud to Facebook and to social media companies, get on the bandwagon of being honest about what you're doing, be more transparent, because people don't trust you.
Sure, and Jack from Twitter has said, look, we're a lefty outfit for the most part. So how do you fix it?
So Jack Dorsey, meeting in Washington. This is on June 7th, by the way. He goes online, sends a note to his employees, and what he says essentially is that, hey, I'm a lefty, you're a lefty, our company's a lefty, and this now gets out, of course. And so that's not good if you're trying to say, hey, no, we're fair. So what he does is he does a schmooze fest in D.C.
Yep.
But now here's what you could do with your Facebook right here. So have a look at this. Is just go any Facebook page, and when you get there, top right, you'll hit the little down arrow right there.
Yep.
Go to settings, and then you're going to scroll down, and you'll find right here this little thing that says news feed settings.
Yep.
And in there, you can make your own little tweaks. It's minor, but this is your own little tweaks of what you can end up doing.
There needs to be a social media company that says we will not censor, we will not change anything except terrorism stuff.
And
I like that.
Be successful.
More information on how to do that at cyberguy.com.
Thank
All
you.
right, Kurt, thank you very much.
You.
We're going to talk about the targeted attack in Maryland newspaper. New information coming your way. Don't move.
Right to a Fox News alert. A grudge might be the motive in that targeted attack at the Capital Gazette newsroom in Maryland.
All right, police say that 5 people gunned down by Gerard Ramos, who once sued the paper for defamation.
In just a few hours, he will face a judge after being charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Griff Jenkins is live outside the newspaper in Annapolis, Maryland, with the latest details and a guest. Griff.
Good morning, guys. It may be the worst mass shooting against journalists in the country, but those journalists at the Capital Gazette would not be deterred in defiance, publishing the newspaper still today with the names of those 5 victims tragically shot: Robert Hyacin, Wendy Winters, Gerald Fishman, Rebecca Smith, and John McNamara. And we're learning a lot more about 38-year-old Jared Ramos. Here with us, Chief Timothy Altamari, Chief, here. It's been a long night. We want to just take a few minutes of your time. Yes, what can you tell us is the latest of this investigation?
So we're still very frustrated. We know what happened, and we know where it happened, but we're still trying to figure out a lot of the whys. Obviously, there was an axe to grind with the newspaper. We're still trying to put the puzzle pieces together about history, how long it's been going on. We know about 2011, but we're not getting a lot of cooperation from the suspect, so we still have a lot of questions to answer. And to be honest with you, I think it's kind of frustrating all of us because we want to do justice for those folks at the Capitol.
Chief, there was an early report about his fingers being possibly mangled or some issue with the fingerprints. Can you tell us more about that?
I can confirm for you that that's not true. So we did identify him, and my investigative commanders have asked me not to go into more detail about how we identified him yet. I will give that to you before terribly long, but if you'll work with us on that. But the story about fingerprints was not correct.
And as far as Ramos is, when your officers should be commended to the highest degree, responding in just literally 60 seconds to 2 minutes. Tell us about how it happened with the response and his surrender.
I think, as with most horrific incidents, you see small moments of the best that humans can offer also. And the cops certainly rose to that level on this. It wasn't just Anne Arundel County cops. We had Annapolis City cops. Annapolis City is only about a mile down the road, and an Anne Arundel County sheriff, or 2 or 3, all go in together to advance the contact on the bad guy and to neutralize the threat. That's the way it's supposed to work.
And Ramos did not fight when you guys arrived on scene. Is that correct? He surrendered to you?
That's correct.
And Chief, as we learn more about the threats, we know on social media, over Twitter, he had a grudge, a defamation lawsuit dating back some 5 years. What can we learn from this history?
So I think that's a great question. I am pretty frustrated with our inability to follow social media nowadays. We lost Geopedia last year or the year before, with all the civil libertarians really hitting law enforcement on the use of that collator of data. I'd like to see some sort of ability come back on that front. And as with every other police department in America, we really deal with a threat complaint about every day. It's tough to follow up on them all. So I would love to see us, and in the near future, we are going to have the ability to start to follow up on individuals, even when we don't have a charge, or even when we haven't encountered enough of a threat to commit them.
And just lastly, a quick question. This paper was the community paper. You knew them. They're, your family, your friends. Can you give us some context for just how important this paper and these journalists were to this community?
So the Capital Gazette is Annapolis's paper. There are other news outlets, but this is the paper. Certainly, I had met every one of those 5 and every other reporter that was involved inside there. Miss Wendy was a human interest reporter who did great work. Rob Hyacinth was a keen wit. He wrote a lot of warm pieces, and all of them were consummate professionals. And although on occasion we might disagree, they always tried to get both sides of the story out.
Chief, our tremendous admiration for you, your men and women, and this entire law enforcement operation has done such an amazing job. We hope you're doing well. Our hearts, prayers, and thoughts go out to you.
Thank you for your support, and thank you, Anne Arundel County, for all the support.
All right, guys, that's it from Chief Altimari here in Arundel County, as this community tries to wake up and keep the investigation going and putting the pieces back together. Back to you.
All right, Griff, thank you very much.
We wish them all the best.
Indeed. The chief mentioned a couple of the names. We'd like to identify all 5 of them. He did mention Rob Hyacinth. He was 59, an associate editor and columnist, also the brother of Carl Hyacinth, the very famous Miami columnist.
He also mentioned Miss Wendy. Well, that's Wendy Winters. She's was 65 years old, the community news reporter, and she does have a daughter. I know that. On her daughter made a comment and said, a wonderful woman and a fantastic reporter.
John McNamara was 56, a staff writer, covered sports for decades. Gerald Fishman, he mentioned, 61, editorial page editor. And Rebecca Smith, just 34 years old. She was a sales assistant. She was just hired in November.
And her social media says, "Mom to the best kid ever."
Meanwhile, 5 minutes after the hour, the other news that is still shocking Washington and around the country is their retirement of Justice Kennedy at the age of 81 years old. And the fact is, President Trump will replace Justice Kennedy, despite the fact that Senator Schumer says precedent has been set. Last night, Mitch McConnell went on with Shannon Bream and said, listen, the precedent has not been set. He said, I did it in the last year of a presidential election because Joe Biden said I would not I would not even hear the story if a justice was retired during the last year of the Bush administration. This is a midterm.
Yeah.
So there'll be somebody out there. The list is firm. It's 25 people. Of those 25 people, Senator Mike Lee, we understand, is being seriously considered as the president's been asking other staffers about him and what kind of justice he would be.
The White House plans to nominate the new justice by July 9th, they're saying, and the president yesterday sat down with senators, some Democrats, mostly Democrats from the red state Democrats, because their states overwhelmingly voted for President Trump. They're up for re-election. If they don't support the justice that he nominates, they're stuck. Do they go with the Democrats or do they support what their constituents would want?
And one of the senators who sat down with the president last night was Heidi Heitkamp, who the president had just kind of blown up out on the trail in her home state of North Dakota.
The night before.
Yeah, exactly right. So you got Heitkamp, Manchin, and Donnelly, but he also met with Senators Murkowski and Collins because the worry is they may actually vote with the Democrats if this becomes a referendum on Roe versus Wade, and then he's got to worry about Rand Paul, as he's always got to worry about Rand Paul, and he's got to worry about Jeff Flake. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to get those same 3 Democrats who voted for Judge Gorsuch to come on board with whomever the name is. And according to sources, apparently they are looking very seriously at just 5 or 6 of the names on the list of 24.
So they're calling the Democrats going for extreme measures. I don't know what they're talking about. Senator Gillibrand saying, we got to go. We can't stand for this. We're not going to let this happen. You heard about Chris Matthews coming out and say don't have any hearings. It's not really up to him. Mark Levin weighed in last night with Sean Hannity. He was live in studio. He'll be with us at about an hour and 10 minutes. Here's what he said about the choice and the type of person the president's looking for.
That's not how it works. We don't want a conservative. We don't want a liberal. We want a constitutionalist. A constitutionalist is somebody who has sworn to uphold the Constitution, looks at the Constitution, looks at the words, takes them in context, tries to figure out what the original intent was, and applies it. And the parties before the Supreme Court have a right to expect that that's what the justices will do. What the Democrats are telling the President of the United States is if you don't nominate Ruth Bader Ginsburg in one form or another, we're going to oppose whomever you nominate. So the Republicans are going to have to steamroll the Democrats, and that's okay.
Meanwhile, there are some Democrats out there. They've already started a liberal group. They're going to pump a lot of money into defeating it. They've already started a campaign called #Ditch the List. The list was compiled by Leonard Leo, who Brian had on his radio show. He had been at the Federalist Society. He's taken a leave of absence. He's got these 24 names that the president famously is considering.
Right. I would add this. Leonard Leo says, don't let anybody get you caught up in Roe v. Wade and eliminating it. He said it was the same scare tactic used in 1982 when Sandra Day O'Connor was nominated and nothing happened. And there's also, keep in mind, too, and they were trying to emphasize this to Senator Susan Collins, who wrote this in a statement when the job opening, says they're not looking necessarily to overturn established law.
Right. It's very rare that that would ever happen. We saw that with the labor union. They did overturn that because they said it was wrong. But I highly, highly doubt that they'll bring that back up. No one really wants to tackle that.
But you know what? Both sides want to use the Supreme Court nomination as a way to gin up their base. I mean, this is what the Democrats are doing on the left. It's what the Republicans are doing on the right.
Yep.
What's going to happen?
Scare tactics and to gin up their base. You're right.
It does sound as if the president will reveal the name before he leaves on the NATO side.
Well, and what Mark Levin said he wants a constitutionalist, someone who just can look at the law and then make decisions. The thing is, though, everyone interprets the law differently depending on your leanings. So
Yeah,
that's why you have split votes amongst all of the justices.
All right, it is almost 7:11 here in New York City on this very busy Friday, and Jillian joins us with a mystery.
That's right, a story we've been following for quite some time now, so let's go ahead and get you caught up. 26 Americans now confirmed sick from a mysterious illness at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. Victims reporting hearing loss, dizziness, and vision problems. Some of them reported hearing a high-pitched noise before getting sick. The incidents stretch all the way back to 2016. In response, President Trump expelled 15 Cuban diplomats from Washington last year. Cuba denies any wrongdoing. The president says his chief of staff is not leaving the White House. President Trump slamming media reports about John Kelly parting ways with the West Wing, calling it fake news. General Kelly also confirming he is not going anywhere. His one-year anniversary of working in the administration is July 31st. Are you flying for the 4th of July? You better buckle up and get those tray tables and seats in the upright position. The TSA says it's possible that today could be its busiest day ever. Based on airline ticket sales, the agency projects to screen nearly 2.7 million passengers and crew members throughout the day. Yikes. It's the end of an era for Toys R Us kids across the nation.
Oh boy, I want to be a Toys R Us kid. Toys R Us kid.
Well, after 71 years in business, all remaining stores will close their doors for good today. Toys R Us declared bankruptcy last year. And this photo of the brand's iconic Geoffrey the Giraffe saying goodbye is now going viral. That's so sad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's not
Geoffrey
a person
needs
right
a
now of any
home.
age that is happy today.
I know.
That makes the whole country, the world
So
sad.
sad. It's our fault though, because we buy everything on Amazon.
We do.
Or
But it's
to one of the other big stores.
But now when I finally have a child who's old enough to enjoy a toy store, they're closing
And where's
them.
Jeffrey going?
Hey, let's go.
Jeffrey, come over to my apartment. I'll take you in.
Let's go look at my iPad and look at toys. That's what's going to be what Ainsley says.
I know, right?
Well, kids are looking at the iPad anyway. That's the thing.
We'll go to Walmart and go to Target.
There you go.
Target.
And Sears.
Sears.
All right.
Yep, Sears looks just like that. Toys R Us.
They got tools. Sears got a lot of tools.
No more. Bankruptcy.
7:12 here in New York City. Congressman Ron DeSantis grilled Rod Rosenstein over the Russia probe yesterday. Did you see this?
You wrote the memo saying that Comey should be fired. Seems like you should be recused from this more so than Jeff Sessions.
Well, the Deputy Attorney General disagreed. The congressman's going to join Brian live next.
And by the way, what a day he had yesterday. They did a debate at night.
Oh, my
and what goes up comes down. Need a new reason not to run from the cops? You are looking at it. You will fall
She was
from the
running
sky.
from the cops?
Yeah.
She tried to hide in the ceiling?
Just this morning, I was in Washington doing my job, grilling Rod Rosenstein about why there was anti-Trump bias in the FBI and DOJ, why they're not coming clean with us, and why they were monitoring the Trump campaign.
There it is. Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis campaigning on his push for answers in the Trump investigation. That in a debate format after spending yesterday morning grilling Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on the Hill. That candidate who started his morning as a congressman and then was auditioning to be a governor of Florida. He is Congressman Ron DeSantis. Congressman, what a day you had.
Well, I'll tell you, Brian, it was a major day for us in the Congress, obviously, with Rosenstein. He hasn't been there in about 6 months. We really pressed him. Then we passed a resolution, giving him a set time period to finally come clean. And I think he realizes we're at wit's end. And then to get on a plane immediately after that, show up in Orlando and walk onto the stage. It was definitely a whirlwind, but it was a day I'll always remember. And I think I was able to do a good job for my constituents in D.C., grilling Rosenstein. And then I think I articulated a strong case of why I should be governor that night.
Yeah, you and Mr. Putman, Adam Putman, did a real good job with Martha and Brett. I think you both got your points across. Congressman, first off, I want everyone to hear a little bit of your give and take. They let you question first so you could get back to Florida to do the debate. So here's how you kicked it off.
I'm proud of his agenda to make America great again. But I'm running a Florida First campaign, and I look forward to campaigning with him as governor of Florida.
That would be the first time you ever campaigned with him because when Donald Trump was trying to win Florida in 2016, Adam Putnam did not attend a single rally with him. You couldn't find Adam Putnam if you had a search warrant.
All right, so sorry about that. Let's talk a little bit about that. He was trying to get on you for spending too much time in Washington, and Putnam says he has spent the time in Florida. Right now, he leads you in the polls 32-17. Does he have a point?
Well, I think those polls are obsolete, Brian. That was before the big Trump endorsement, before the debate, before our ad campaign started. So I think that'll be the high watermark for him. Look, he was in Congress for 10 years. I've been there for 5. I've done more in 5 than he did in 10. I'm actually leading on issues that matter. And what he does is he gets a 6-figure salary from the taxpayers of Florida. And he campaigns incessantly. He doesn't do his job. He's been derelict in his duties. He covered up snafus with the background check system. He's got problems with sexual harassment in his office. So I'm proud to be doing my job. I'm working. I'm earning my paycheck. So this notion that somehow you're out there doing your job and that's a bad thing, the only person who would say that is a career politician. And Adam Putnam has been in elected office since he was 22 years old. And he always does the bidding of his donors instead of the people of Florida. And I was able to expose that last night, and the people of Florida are responding positively to my message.
And we understand that Adam Putnam is going to be on with Bill Hemmer and Sandra Smith in about an hour. You got your hands full. Hopefully you got your point across with Rod Rosenstein yesterday, because he was blistered and he gave it right back. Congressman Ron DeSantis, thanks. When we come back, you're welcome. We're going to talk a little about law enforcement with the newest law enforcement member, Dean Cain.
The single largest tax cut in American history.
Time now for your news by the numbers. First, 6. That's how many months it's been since the president's historic Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed. He's hosting a celebration to mark the occasion later today. Next, 18. That's how old you'll need to be to become a cross-country truck driver under a new pilot program. Right now, drivers must be 21 to cross state lines. The program meant to curb the truck driver shortage. And finally, 16. That's how young voters could soon be in Washington, D.C. Supporters of a bill considered by the D.C. Council argue teens should be able to hold elected officials accountable, since some of them pay taxes. Ainsley?
We have a Fox News alert. First responders to Maryland, to that newspaper in Maryland after that shooting. They're on the scene. They were on the scene in 60 seconds. Just amazing.
It is amazing. Their quick actions and recent training likely saved countless lives in the newsroom.
So, how pivotal is the role of an active shooter training for our law enforcement officers, and if they want to be successful in a heated moment like that? Here to weigh in is the newly sworn-in Idaho State Police Reserve officer himself, current, he used to play Superman, still a very active actor.
Once Superman, always Superman.
Dean, you just went through the academy. As this unfolds and you find out these first responders were there within 60 seconds, guns a-blazing, what do you now know that we don't, because we didn't go through what you went through?
Well, actually, you had a guest on earlier, Dr. Porcher, who spoke brilliantly on this, the kind of training that they need, and the way that police officers are now going in to confront active shooters immediately. It was unbelievable. I mean, to get there within 60 to 90 seconds is amazing. But even having done that, the damage was already done.
Absolutely. Plus, as they try to piece the picture together, it looks like perhaps some red flags were missed. It sounds like, according to the New York Times, there were threats online, social media, and stuff like that. And the guy had an axe to grind. He sued the paper, lost the case, because the judge said ultimately he didn't understand the law.
Yeah, well, the signs were there. The signs were there again. It happens time and time again. They're making threats. They're making threats, whether it's online or in person. But the threats are there. They were aware of the situation. I wish somebody had been inside the building with their concealed carry, and I wish that the place had been a little bit more hardened.
Yeah. It is so frustrating, though, for the officers, because they'll see on social media the warning signs, but you can't really go and arrest someone for that. You might be able to get them therapy, like the guy got therapy. The judge ordered him therapy after harassing that girl allegedly online. And actually, not allegedly, because he pleaded guilty to it. So he gets therapy, but then after therapy or during therapy, these individuals they're not behind bars for the rest of their life. So you can't go and arrest someone. So it's very frustrating.
It's a very tough thing. So the law enforcement has to walk that very fine line. It's a really difficult job. They don't get enough credit for the difficult job that they do. Which is part of the reason I joined up, to say thank you and let me learn how to do this.
Think about all the lives that were saved because they were there in 60 seconds too.
Amazing. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Thank you very much for joining the force out in Idaho. That's great. But you are an actor. That's your regular day
Yes.
job. And you've got a new film coming out in a couple of months. And it's based on a horrific story from down in the Philly area.
Yeah, it's a story of Kermit Gosnell. And he is, some people call him the most prolific serial killer in the history of the United States. He was an abortion clinic doctor who was performing late-term abortions. And it was horrible because he was inducing labor, and babies were born alive, and they were snipping with surgical scissors and ending it. So we had trouble getting this film out. We made this a couple of years ago. Nobody wanted to distribute it because the subject matter is so graphic and so terrible. In fact, the news media didn't cover it until Kirsten Powers wrote a piece that got people, news people coming in and covering the case. Just people didn't want to talk about it. And people haven't wanted to let us release this film.
Why was it important for this film to be released in your mind?
Well, because the story is so horrendous. It's so bad, people aren't aware of it. That clinic hadn't been inspected in 2 decades because people didn't want to be politically incorrect. And that kind of thing just can't happen.
And you know what? If the debate over this Anthony Kennedy seat is all about Roe v. Wade, shouldn't they be able to see this movie to make a decision to what's at stake?
I think this film will certainly weigh in on that topic without a doubt, and people should watch it and understand what happens.
What happened to the doctor?
He's in jail for life.
Yeah,
he's found guilty of murder 3 times and involuntary manslaughter 1 count.
It's a terrible story. All right. Here's the other thing you don't know about Dean. He's actually here today just to try to figure out where he's going to sit on the couch because he's co-hosting Fox and Friends this weekend.
Yes, I'll be here Saturday and Sunday. I guess this show is 3 hours.
You go.
Yeah.
The weekend is 4 hours. What is that?
I know.
It's a lot of fun. I love being here on the couch with you guys, and it's really fun to step into the.
Well, I understand you're going to sit in my spot, so why don't you go ahead and try it out? Come on over, Dean. There you go.
All right.
See how it goes.
I'm in.
All right. Go ahead. Take my read.
Oh, wow.
All right,
This is comfortable.
Why don't you tell the audience what's coming up?
All right, police now combing through a mountain of evidence after the Maryland newsroom shooting. What clues are they looking for this morning? Dr. Michael Baden here to discuss next.
Oh, you did great.
See you tomorrow.
Door of the Capitol Gazette had been blown to pieces. This guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun, moving across the entrance of the Capitol Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office, like he was targeting people.
Fox News alert, those are just some of the harrowing details from that deadly targeted attack at the Capitol Gazette newspaper in Maryland. The suspect will face a judge this morning charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. His motive may be a years-long grudge with the paper. Police have identified all 5 victims. 4 of them were journalists, 1 of them a sales assistant. Police now increasing security at newsrooms all across the United States in case of a copycat.
Well, let's bring in Dr. Michael Baden, forensic pathologist and Fox News contributor. Dr. Baden, this police were there in 60 seconds. In your experience with the type of gun that he used,
shotgun
probably saved so many lives, right?
Oh, it was very important because the shotgun doesn't shoot 1 bullet. It shoots like 9 or 12 buckshots that each one, in each cartridge, the size of a .32 caliber bullet. So if he were able to reload again and got up and started spraying things, he could have killed a lot more people.
Right, and when you talk about guns, that's something that a lot of people you can buy without a license.
That's right. It's a shotgun used for hunting mostly, but it's amazing that 1 cartridge contains 9 or 12 .32 caliber bullets in them, essentially.
Right. We just heard at the top of the hour, Griff did an interview with Chief of Police of Anne Arundel County out in Maryland, and he said that those stories that were out there about how the shooter supposedly he did something he mutilated his fingertips.
Yes.
That story not true. It is apparently true, though, that the guy is not very cooperative.
Yeah, well, that's going to be interesting also because the police will want to find ways of getting blood to test for drugs, to do a medical workup, to see if there are any medical conditions that might have affected how he acted. Remember, Charles Whitman in 1966, the Texas shooter, killed 17 people with a rifle, and at autopsy was found to have a brain tumor. So,
so how often is it are these guys on drugs?
Well, sometimes alcohol or drugs, but usually the mass killers like him, they're doing a certain plan, and he took a lot of actions to show that he knew what he was doing. But one of the things you want to go out to find out what motives are, what motivates these people, is occasionally you find them on high hallucinogenic drugs or something, but that's very rare.
One of the investigators was telling Griff that we have some information we're not releasing to the public. We will. Just bear with us. What's happening today as far as this investigation is concerned?
Today, right now, autopsies are being done on the 5 victims, and all the ammunition is being removed from them to make sure that they all came from the same weapon. If they find 1 handgun bullet, that means it's a second person. Now, they've done their investigation. They feel it's 1 person, but the autopsy will confirm that.
Yeah.
And they'll try to get the bodies to be released sometime today so that the families can have whatever funeral arrangements they're going to have. They'll make out all the trajectories. Each pellet creates a trajectory in the body, and that becomes very important and figure out how he was moving, where he was, and it's important in a trial that comes up later to show the juries the trajectories of the bullets.
And it sounds as though it sounds like some of the people who were also injured were injured by shrapnel from the glass because he shot through the window to get in.
Right. Then when he shoots at the door, the window, or the door, the 9 pellets contain all kinds of flying debris that can cause secondary wounds and injuries.
Gotcha.
So it's a very dangerous weapon to shoot in public.
Dr. Michael Baden, thanks so much.
Good to
Appreciate
see
it.
you.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you, Dr. Baden.
Meanwhile, Jillian is poised to give us the rest of the news, and soon we'll be outside with Toby Mac. That's going to be exciting.
Yes,
and
it
the
will.
audience in the place is packed already.
I know. There's a massive line of people out there. I know, it's crazy. And we will get out there in a little bit, but in the meantime, let's get you caught up on your headlines. Nearly 90 illegal immigrants found hiding in stash houses near the southern border. Agents in Texas tracking down the men, women, and unaccompanied children in 2 different homes. The migrants coming from Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. They will now be processed by immigration authorities. The push to legalize marijuana nationwide is reaching a new high. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer introducing a bill that would federally decriminalize pot. The proposal would take marijuana off the controlled substance list, help fund pot businesses owned by women or minorities, and give $500 million to medical marijuana research. President Trump has said he may support legislation as long as it protects states' rights. Just stop what you're doing and look at this. A woman falls through a ceiling trying to run from the cops. You can't make this up. You can see her crashing down onto a shelf inside a convenience store in Canada. She was trying to hide above the ceiling tiles after she and another suspect allegedly used a stolen credit card to buy a can of soda. Police rushed to Walmart to deal with an unexpected customer. Officers wrangling this 8-foot alligator in the parking lot near Corpus Christi, Texas. The department joking it snuck out of a nearby pond for some midnight shopping. Wildlife officials brought it to a secure location and set it free. Let's look at your headlines. Send it to you.
Right? You see they're covering its eyes?
It was a gator?
Right, yeah, gator.
See you later, Gator. All right, 21 minutes before the top of the hour, Adam Klotz is outside with a whole bunch of our fans on this beautiful Friday.
With a ton of fans. How's everybody doing? Are you ready for Toby Mac? I'm loving this out here, guys. This is an absolute blast. The weather is fantastic for it. It's a little bit on the humid side. Temperatures right now sitting into the 70s, the low 70s. Across the country, the story is going to be heat the next couple of days. Look at that, already the mid 80s in the middle of the country. We're looking at spots with heat advisories, watches, warnings. What does that mean? It means the feels like temperature is going to be 105 to 110. Here in New York City today, guys, running up to around 90 degrees, closer to 100 on Sunday if you guys are hanging around for a little while. Real quick, can I get my future Fox News anchor to run out here real quick? What's your name? Courtney. Courtney, this is Courtney. She's a future Fox News anchor. Brian, you better stay on your game because I think she's coming for you. Particularly Brian. That's whose job you want, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, Brian.
First Dean Kane and now you.
Yeah.
All right.
Look at her cute sign. That's so nice of you to bring
You
her
know what?
there.
Let's put her on the 5 and see how she does.
All right.
That'd be great.
You just got a job.
Ask her about trade in North Korea, Brian's favorite topics.
I love Fridays in the summer. So many folks come to see us. Meanwhile, straight ahead on our telecast, President Trump expressing the importance of his next Supreme Court pick.
Justice Kennedy's retirement makes the issue of Senate control one of the vital issues of our time.
So what impact will that have on the midterm elections? Our next guest says this has the potential to fire up both sides.
Plus, Toby Mac is over in our Keurig corner drinking his coffee. He's performing live for the summer concert series. Toby, we have a huge crowd out there waiting for you to sing.
For you.
For you, baby.
For you. Hope you brought your A game. All right.
A game and cake.
Here are some quick headlines for you. It pays to to follow the law. The Justice Department giving out nearly $200 million to cities that cooperate with federal immigration authorities. The public safety grants will be used to pay for things like police equipment and training. About 300 sanctuary cities, states, and counties are not going to get any of that money. And do you want free food? Get out your work boots. The Senate passing a landmark farm bill that could require food stamp recipients to work until they are 59 years old. It also authorizes help for farmers and nutrition programs for 5 years. The current farm law expires on September 30th. Steve?
All right, Ainsley, thank you. President Trump doubling down on the importance of Senate control in the upcoming midterms, saying it's vital for getting his next Supreme Court nominee approved by the Senate.
Remember this, so we have a pick to come up. We have to pick a great one. We have to pick one that's going to be there for 40 years, 45 years. Justice Kennedy's retirement makes the issue of Senate control one of the vital issues of our time.
Here to break down what impact the Supreme Court opening will have on the midterm elections is pollster Chris Wilson, joins us from Austin. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I saw a poll this morning that said that something like 25 or 30% of the people who voted for Donald Trump voted for him so that he could make the next pick on the Supreme Court. Now, fast forward a year and a half, close to 2 years. This is big for both Democrats and Republicans in ginning up their base, right?
It really is. I would say, though, you've seen the Democrat base be ginned up, if you will, from all the enthusiasm that has existed, that's illustrated itself through special election turnout, where Democrats have really set record numbers. Now, you've seen those numbers kind of come to a bit of a standstill, like, for instance, I am in Texas, where Democrat turnout in the gubernatorial primary here, or the gubernatorial runoff, was the lowest since 1920. So you've also started to see that start to tick back down, where I think they got really excited early. But what this does now is, one of the key demographics to Donald Trump's victory in 2016 was evangelicals. And you're right, they turned out because the well, it wasn't the Gorsuch, it was the seat on the Supreme Court, Scalia's seat where he had died, and it was up there to be filled. Well, now what this does is it re-energizes that same universe, that same group of voters that turned out in 16 and gets them excited about 18.
Okay, so Chris, explain this to me, though. It sounds like Mitch McConnell wants to have the vote before the election. Now, that's going to be a squeeze play for a bunch of these Democrat senators from Republican states like Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Manchin, and Donnelly as well. You know, if they don't vote for that person, come a week or two later at the ballot box, they might not wind up with a job for another 6 years.
Well, you're right. You mentioned three. I could add John Tester in there. You could add Claire McCaskill in there. I mean, the list really goes on. And it was, I would, after the Kennedy announcing his retirement, there were meetings going on in every one of those states. You know, well, Missouri, North Dakota, Montana, Indiana, West Virginia, of really pure panic. Because you're right. This is going to be a campaign issue. If it is before the election and they vote no, they jeopardize their seat. If it's after the election and they haven't had the chance to vote yet, it becomes the primary campaign issue.
Right. And Chris, exit question, you can really tell that this is important because both sides are already spending a lot of money on ads to try to change people's minds.
They are, but the fact is there is one universe that is really going to be excited about this in these red states, and that is that evangelical group that gave Trump victories by 20-plus points in a lot of them. So you're going to have, just go through them again, John Tester trying to run uphill in Montana, and Claire McCaskill in Missouri, up against that group that was a little bit on the fence about whether or not to turn out in 2018. Now you're injecting rocket fuel into their enthusiasm.
All right, let's see what happens. Chris Wilson, pollster and CEO of WPA Intel. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live from Texas.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. 11 and a half minutes before the top of the hour. More candidates on the left are calling for the end of the ICE.
I believe you should get rid of it, start over, reimagine it.
I think we need to abolish ICE. That seems really clear.
We must abolish ICE.
Well, the acting ICE director, Tom Homan, is here to react to that coming up in the next hour. But first, Toby Mac is warming up for the summer concert series. We're live on stage with him next.
Some days the tongue gets twisted. Other days my thoughts just fall apart. I do, I don't, I will. Only
done the impossible. He has fused Christian themes with a hip-hop beat. He is our next artist and the featured act on our summer concert series. He has been topping the charts since 2001 because he wanted to.
The 7-time Grammy winner, Toby Mac, is out with a brand new single, I Just Need You.
And he's standing next to us. This is so exciting. You know, I just realized 7 is the godly number. And he's won 7 Grammys.
7, man.
That's exciting.
Grateful. Thank you.
God has really blessed
don't
you.
get an 8.
No. We'll stick right there at 7.
So how did you start singing? Did you start singing in church when you were little?
No.
What's your
I was
story?
singing. I was in a garage band kind of thing with my buddies, singing, really bad songs, but doing the best I could. And then I kind of fell in love with hip hop. Started writing rhymes, started writing things, and then I met these dudes named Michael and Kevin, and we formed this group called Easy Talk. And then did my own thing from there, and I'm really grateful. Thank you guys so much for coming out, NYC.
So, Toby, you're from Fairfax, Virginia.
I am.
You went to Liberty University.
I did.
You worked in your garage, coming up with some great songs. But with the name Toby Mac, that's not on your driver's license.
No, it's not. I was called Toby from the day I was born.
Okay.
My parents named me Kevin Michael McKeon, but my older brother that was 2 or 3 years older than me, when my mom was pregnant with me, would go up and touch her tummy and say, "When's the baby coming?" And my mom would say, "October." And my brother started calling me Tober. Tober. So
awesome.
So from pre-K to now, they've called me Toby. I've never been called Kevin. So
Now, even if that story's not true, I love it. It's fantastic. Now, Toby, tell me in particular, how much easier is life now that you've had success and fame? Does that allow you to be more creative, or is it to make you sit back and be fat and happy?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm a worker. Like, I'm a real crafter of songs.
Where were you last night?
Last night I walked off stage at midnight in Pennsylvania at a Creation Festival. So
What's the best part of the job?
the best part of the job, I love the thing that I can travel and do shows, but I can quickly get back to my family.
How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids. My wife and I have 5 kids. I have a lovely Jamaican wife named Amanda, and she is my heartbeat. You know what I mean?
You need 2 more to get to 7.
No, we done, baby. We done.
And one of the reasons we've got the biggest crowd of the year so far is the fact that your message, your Christian music message, is very positive. It's very optimistic.
Yeah, I try to write about the things I'm going through, and I'm a needy man. I need a big God, and I rely on that big God every day. Every day.
So tell us about this song.
This song, I Just Need You, it's exactly about what I just described. It's really a deeply personal song. It's about my own situations. But I find when I write about what I'm going through, as I try to walk through this crazy world and stay faithful, it relates to people. So I Just Need You is just really saying, I'm a little man and I just need you.
Well, it is a beautiful music video.
Thank you, man.
Although at the end you do torch a Cadillac. What the heck is that about?
Don't worry, that was spare parts, I promise.
You notice something else that stands out about you, the types of crowd? You have a lot of kids in your crowd.
Yeah.
Do you feel a responsibility?
I do. I think people relate to me, my music, because I'm going through the same things they are. I have kids, I'm raising kids, these guys are raising kids, and I'm looking at the very kids that listen to my music, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I tell you what, on the other side of a timeout, you're going to start performing. Are you ready for
I'm ready, let's go.
We're so excited to hear your music live. Thank you. God bless you.
All right, thanks everybody for coming out. We're going to feed you, so get in line. Meanwhile, tensions are flaring on Capitol Hill. Congress got to grilling. Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray got some tough questions. We've got the moments that you should not want to miss coming your way.
Plus, Thomas Homan, the acting ICE director. He's going to join us. Geraldo's going to be here, and Mark Levin coming up in the next hour.
Exclamation point.